What's going on, guys? It's Jacob from Topside MMA, and today I am bringing you the first episode of Season 9 for Dana White's Contender Series. Now, this is the first time we've done this on the channel, so I hope you guys are excited. I hope you guys like it. You know, we got 9 weeks of this, or 10 weeks of this, I think, so every Tuesday we're going to have it, and I guess they'll have the videos up every Monday, I think, hopefully. Early Monday afternoon, maybe Sunday, but hopefully at the latest Monday afternoon. So yeah, we'll just go over all the fights, give you my insights, give you my leans, see what you guys are thinking. You know, let me know in the comments if you guys like this stuff. But yeah, let's get right into it. First up, we got Christopher Ewert versus Yuri Panferov. Now, I am not confident in this one either way. I know a lot of people are on Christopher Ewert this week, and it's hard to have any real confidence in this. I am taking Christopher Ewert in this, but I don't want to say it's a coin toss. You know, I have a slight lean for him, but it's not anything very confident just because I think this is personally, I think it's a very low level fight. I don't think you can have a ton of confidence in such a low level fight. I don't think either of these guys are really cut out for the UFC from what I've seen so far. You know, we saw Yuri Panferov get smoked by Torres Finney, which is not a good look. He doesn't have the cardio for Yuri. Like, Yuri doesn't have the cardio to go long if fights get gritty. You know, he's used to getting guys out of there early. And this thing too is just he doesn't really have the same, I don't know, he just doesn't have the, I don't want to say the look, but like from how he fights, he just doesn't seem to be of the caliber of a UFC fighter, just from the way he is. The level of competition is not great too, so the fights that he does have that look really good, it's just like against lower level competition. A couple fights ago, he beat up some 45-year-old man and got him out of there. So it's like, you look at his record and you see like, oh, like early finishes, but then it's like, all right, if you're knocking out a 45-year-old man in the first round, I'm not super impressed by that. Or at least Christopher Ewert, you know, I know his level of competition's not super high either, but at least it's a tad bit higher. You know, who did he recently fought some up-and-coming prospect. It was, Reese Watkins, who was undefeated, who he got a decision on him. But I wasn't super impressed with that either. You know, Reese Watkins I think he trains at some gym with some people in the UFC. I forget which one. But I was looking through him too, and I'm like, this kid's so young. I think he's only, 22 or 23 years old. And I was reading into him. He's like transitioning into MMA from football or it was something else. How old is he? Yeah, he's 23 years old. Is on a 2-fight losing streak. So I'm like, I don't put a ton of. American Top Team. That's where this Reese Watkins dude fights out of. But I don't put a ton of weight on that performance. It's just, from Christopher Ewert, he has the heart, he has the dog in him. You can tell he really wants to be there. Like in his fights, he's smiling, he's having a good time, which, you know, you like to see. If you're picking either guy this week, you definitely want to pick the guy who can go the distance, who has that cardio to last, who wants to be there, who has that dog in him. Especially a guy like Yuri, who doesn't really seem to have that level of cardio. We don't really know if he can hang in the later rounds, because we saw Torres Finney was able to exploit him later on. So I gotta lean Christopher Ewert this week. It's just from what I've seen of him so far, I'm not confident in his abilities overall. Like, I don't think either of these guys could really hang in the UFC. So for that reason, I'm not very confident, but I will go Christopher for the pick this week. Oh, boom. Next up, we got George Mangos versus Radley da Silva. Now, this is going to be an interesting one. This is actually probably my second favorite fight of the night. I'm really excited to see this one. Just because I think these guys both have decent talent. You know, it's tough because I get why George Mangos is the favorite. I totally get it, but it's like, he's only 21 years old, so I think his potential is a lot higher than Radley da Silva's, just because of the age gap. It's like at 21 years old, he's already in the Dana White Contender Series pool. He's 7-0. His level of competition's better, so it's like, I get why he's the favorite. You know, he has that higher trajectory. You know, at only 21 years old, the sky's the limit for this kid. He looks really good so far. But Radley da Silva, you know, you can't sleep on him. Yeah, he's 30 years old, and he's finally getting into the Dana White Contender Series right now, and it's like, you look at them too, it's like 7-0 versus 7-1, and there's a 9-year age gap. That is definitely something to consider. But, you know, Radley da Silva, he does look good from the tape that I watched on him. The thing is, though, it's like the level of competition is just, it's not night and day difference, I would say, but I think George Mangos definitely has the higher level of competition. So I was gonna say, if we pull this up, where is he? George Mangos. Yeah, if you look at his recent wins, he fought Ethan Thomas. I actually couldn't find this fight. It was a round 1 knockout, 34 seconds. I couldn't find this fight. I looked everywhere. I looked on UFC Fight Pass, YouTube. I couldn't find it. But after he fought this Shochi Tomita guy, who's 10-2, really early on, head kick, knockout, walk-off knockout, very impressive, because George Mangos is more of a grappler traditionally. That's kind of what he started his MMA basis off of. So to see him kind of develop his striking as he's gotten older is pretty impressive. And beating a 10-2 guy by a first round head kick knockout goes to show that, all right, maybe his striking is developing at a very fast rate too. Like maybe his striking is starting to get up with his level of grappling. And, for that reason, I get why people are confident in him after seeing that fight, which was, less than a year ago, which is crazy. And then also he had to fight over Jared Wilbraham, which I know some people like. I think he's a decent level fighter. Same with Justin Van Heerden, decent level fighter too. So I think those types of wins are more impressive per se than the Radley de Silva. I know what people say about Canada, the fight, like there's just not a whole lot of talent out there, and it's pretty, it's fair to say that, it's not nowhere near like the States or other big countries like Russia or Brazil or something like that. The level of competition's not bad. He beat a 19-9 Drew Brokenshire. I watched that. He got him in a rear naked choke. He was having real trouble though. I forget which one. It was either the Drake Randall fight or the Drew Brokenshire. I think it was the Drew Brokenshire fight. Yeah, that's what it was. In the Drew Brokenshire fight, he was in these nasty submissions, man. Radley de Silva, I don't know how he didn't tap. He was in a nasty heel hook. And you can see him, like his face is just like, he's like not yelling, but like you can see the reaction on his face. He's like, he's like yelling out, but he wasn't actually yelling, but you could see it on his face. And I don't know how the hell this man did not tap, because it looked absolutely brutal. And then about 30 seconds later, he gets out of that, and he was in multiple heel hooks too. I mean, his leg was jacked. And then 30 seconds later, he gets into this damn calf slicer, where you can see his knee is just being busted wide open. It was disgusting. I don't know how the hell Radley de Silva didn't tap, which makes me think, I don't know which way to exactly take that. It's like you could look at it one way, it's like, this guy's not tapping to shit. If he didn't tap to that horrible heel hook or the calf slicer, he's probably not tapping to anything. This dude's in there to really go for it. Or on the other hand, you could think, okay, he's not tapping, but he's getting put in these positions. He's getting put in these nasty heel hooks, these nasty calf slicers. Someone like George Mangos, if he has better grappling, if he has better submissions on the ground, maybe George Mangos could exploit that. Maybe he puts him in a heel hook that maybe he doesn't tap, but maybe he gets his damn ACL blown out. You know what I mean? So you can look at it either way. Personally, I look at it more towards the latter on that. I think if anything, seeing that was not a good sign. Seeing that he's able to be exploited on the ground is not reassuring to pick him this week. So I'm still leaning George Mangos either way, but that was another reason that kind of pushes me more towards this side. But it's tough, like at 21 years old, he's very green. It's going to be his first step up in a major competition in a major organization, I guess for both of these guys. But, what I've seen from George Mangos too, which I like, is he seems very calm and cool and level-headed and collected. Like he doesn't seem like the bright lights get to him. He's not like too nervous. Like he doesn't give any of that. But like anytime I see him fight, he just has this like very calm, cool demeanor to him, which I like to see. At only 21 years old. That makes me think, all right, he's not going to choke or break under the big Dana White Contender Series lights. You know what I mean? Like, I think he's going to be dialed in for this fight. I think it's going to be a good one, though. I think these odds are actually pretty damn fair. I get why George Mangos is the slight favorite. He's undefeated. But it's going to be a close one. I'm going George Mangos. Not super confident, but I think he should have enough to get it done here. But I wouldn't be surprised however way it goes. Next up. We got Baysangur Susurkaev versus Murtaza Talha. Now, I am taking Baysangur Susurkaev. I'm going to say Baysangur. I'm taking Baysangur this week. He's a decent favorite at minus 320, and it makes sense. But I'm not putting anything on this one this week. The only reason why I have some hesitancy on this one is because Baysangur is taking this fight on short notice. Very short notice. I think it was 7 days. I think like a week. Short notice he's taking this on. So, yeah, you can assume, I think it's safe to assume that he's ready to go, that his cardio's good, he's ready to go all 3 rounds if need be, and that he's just been in shape. He's a young upcoming guy. He's trying to get his opportunity to make it in the big leagues. Like he's probably staying in shape year round. You have to assume he is, especially he's not shown any bad cardio problems so far. It's like, you have to assume he's in decent shape, but for the minus 320 price tag, it is a little bit of a concern just because we don't know exactly how good his cardio is going to be on only 1 week notice. But he's going against Murtaza Talha, who I am not extremely fond on for a couple of reasons. But we'll get into that. But Baysangur, he's looked really good so far in the few fights that I've seen from him. What is he at? 8-0. I've seen multiple of his fights. And he's looked good. He's a striker. He's fighting from Chechnya, but he's not a wrestler. He wants to keep it on the feet. He has decent takedown defense. He has good balance. I've seen him show off his takedown defense against the cage. Where he landed the kick. I forget which fight it was of his, but this one dude caught multiple of his kicks, and he was bouncing on one leg, and he was fighting off single leg takedowns, and he was able to keep it on the feet and really take control of the fight, which you like to see, especially because he wants to be a striker. He wants to keep it on the feet, so it's good that he's able to withstand different takedowns. And he's from Dagestan too. It's like, you gotta assume he has decent wrestling, decent takedowns. But I mean, anyway, like, he's shown that already so far in his career, and he should be the better striker here. I think he's going to be a better striker than Talha. Talha is really just like a nitty gritty, like really bite down on the mouthpiece and make it ugly type of fighter. He's decent. We've seen him in the Dana White Contender Series before. He fought Rodolfo Bellato, and that's why I'm so not confident in him this week, is because he made Rodolfo Bellato look like prime John Jones in the octagon. Rodolfo Bellato just is coming off a knockout loss to Paul Craig, which I know it's not ruled that way, but that's pretty much what happened. He got knocked out by Paul Craig. Whatever you want to say, you could say, but getting knocked out by Paul Craig in 2025, crazy look. So for Murtaza Talha to get absolutely dog-walked by Rodolfo Bellato, I'm telling you, Rodolfo Bellato, he looked like John Jones out there fighting Talha. The way he was beating on him, he wore him down. He broke him in the second round. I think Baysangur can do the exact same thing too. And the last thing I want to point out about this fight that's very interesting to me is I was going through Tapology. I was looking through these guys' fights, seeing who they've recently fought in the recent years. And you can see down here too. Can you see my mouse? Yeah. You can see this was the knockout loss to Rodolfo Bellato in 2023. This was his most recent fight in 2025. Now, it's green, and it has this little red border around it because it's technically a win, but there's a lot of controversy behind it. Now, this dude, Talha, he fought this man. I forget exactly what his name was, but we're going to see it. Who did he fight? Oleg Klimov, right here. It's Oleg Klimov, dude. This fight, he got this guy, you knocked him out in one round. It looks like, oh, he got a round one knockout. Very impressive, and BFC 81. Then it had this little icon next to it, this little warning caution sign. So I'm like, okay, I'll click on that. What does that mean? I don't recognize that. Click on it. This is Oleg Klimov, 0-5, and that's not even half of it. This fighter has been found by Tapology to have engaged in activity which does not conform to combat sports standards, has purposely participated in bouts with no reasonable path to victory, displayed a lack of competitive effort, and is unjustifiably matched against far more skilled opponents. This dude is basically getting paid off to throw fights, and this was his last opponent. And the funny thing about this too, well, one, this dude is just stepping up on 2 hours notice, getting paid off by some fight organization. They probably threw him $1,000 saying, all right, you're going to come in and get your ass kicked. We'll pay you $1,000. And whatever behind the scenes BS went on with this dude, who knows for sure. But this dude, if you look at his record too, this is the funny thing. It shows 0-5 as his pro MMA record. But then if you actually look through it, these are all the fights that are under his pro record. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Wait. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Sorry, something popped up. This one didn't count. So 9 pro fights, but only 5 of them are being counted because the other ones have been ruled out. Or I guess this was not kickboxing wouldn't be counted in there, and the exhibition was. I think it was these two. Yeah, or these, maybe this one too, but at least these two. Which is absolutely insane. Like, they're straight up taking fights off of his pro record because they're like, this dude is straight up throwing fights or being paid off. Like, it's ridiculous. So that was his most recent opponent too. Ever since the Rodolfo Bellato beatdown, he took a year off. That was 2023. 2025, he beat someone who probably got paid off, and now he somehow has another chance in the Contender Series. I don't get it. I don't get why the hell he's back unless they think he's just going to be super entertaining, or if they think he's just going to be a highlight reel knockout for Baysangur, because Baysangur looks damn good. At 24 years old, this dude is good. You could throw him in the UFC right now, and this dude would do pretty well. I think he has a lot of potential. He's looked really good so far. I think, especially at the middleweight division, I think he could knock out a lot of tin cans or lower ranked guys. I think he could work his way up. Only 24 years old too. He has a lot of potential to get better and better. I like him. I think he's solid. And he's fun to watch too. So this whole fight seems weird to me. I don't know why Talha is really getting brought back. Who the hell knows? But I'm taking Baysangur this week. I just had to explain that stuff because I thought it was pretty funny. Week's notice is a little weird, but I still think he's good enough to beat a guy like Talha. Talha has not been impressive. So going Baysangur this week, but that's the little backstory behind that one as well. Next up, we got Ty Miller versus Jimmy Drago. Now, this is probably my least confident pick of the entire night. Or one of them, I guess. Probably, maybe not the lowest. Somewhere in there. I don't know. Just because there's not much tape on these guys. It was hard to find hardly anything. I only saw combined, I think I saw 1 or 2 Ty Miller fights. I only saw 1 Jimmy Drago fight. I was just not able to find anything on these guys. Like, let me pull them up. Where the hell are these guys? Yeah, Jimmy Drago, 7-2. Who did he fight? The one fight that I watched him fight too, it was the no contest. It was against Junior Mello, where this dude was a total wuss. He just gave up in the second round, I think. Yeah, it was some injury or like eye poke, and it was something. I think it was one of these two, because both of these guys' most recent fights are no contests, and it was the same thing for both. It was 2 guys just completely wussed out, and they just gave up. One of them between these two was where they had a eye cut. Like he got some cut. One of them was a headbutt. It was a clash of heads, and I think it was Ty Miller's fight. It was the dude was coming into him, going for a takedown, and they have a clash of heads, completely accidental. He gets a little cut. By the time he walks and they clean the cut up and they call the fight off, the wound was completely sealed. There was no more blood. Like, you look at this guy and he's like, the wound is completely sealed. They used Vaseline or whatever, and it's like they easily could have let that continue. I don't know why the hell they didn't. They said it was a medical thing. I don't think so at all. I don't know what doctor would have ruled that off, because literally by the time they sealed it up, 30 seconds later, there's no more blood. Like he's walking around. You can't even tell that he's injured. He looks totally fine. And the other one, it was, I think, Jimmy Drago then. I think it was him that there was like some accidental eye poke, and the dude, like, his eye looked completely fine. Like he could have taken the 5 minutes or whatever to get back into it, recover. He said, nope, I can't go. So both of those fights, super weird, no contest. The other guy was just wuss, honestly. From what it seemed, I'm not in there, but from what I saw, it looked like they just gave up. So my knowledge on these guys is really limited. I just was not able to find hardly any tape on either of these guys. It's tough to pick. Jimmy Drago, I've heard he's a recovering heroin addict, or not recovering, a former reformed heroin addict. So you got to figure, if Jimmy Drago can go through a damn heroin addiction and back, he's a dog. He has that drive in him. I respect that a lot. So shout out to Jimmy Drago for that. And if he has the dog to do that, then he should be a dog enough to get into the cage. So I'm not surprised he's an MMA fighter now. So shout out to Jimmy Drago. Super cool story that I saw. I didn't read a whole lot into it. I just saw the whole heroin problem that he had in the past. But super cool that he's been able to turn his life around. That takes a ton of willpower, guts, determination. So respect to him for that. I want to see him win for that reason. But Ty Miller, I haven't seen a whole lot from him about his personal life. I heard that he was a former pro boxer that is transitioning to MMA. So I think Jimmy Drago, his best chance here is to take it to the ground and try and strike. Take it to the ground and not try and really get into a firefight with Ty Miller, because that's going to be his best chance in this fight. But from the limited tape I've seen on Jimmy Drago, he seemed more like a striker anyway. He seemed like he wants to keep it on the feet. I didn't really see him shooting for a ton of takedowns or anything like that. So I think this one's going to be close. I wouldn't be surprised if Ty Miller was able to squeak by on a decision, maybe a late finish. I think these guys are likely going to keep it on the feet, probably stand and bang. Tyler Miller is not going to take it to the ground unless he's like super hurt or something. Jimmy Drago, I'm not sure exactly if he might. Who knows? From what I've seen, he's more of a striker, but it's hard to take a pick on this one. Like, if I had to choose, I'd probably just say screw it, let the odds do the decision for you and go with Ty Miller. But I do want to see Jimmy Drago win just because I like his story. Nothing against Ty Miller, but I know Ty Miller has that boxing background, so I'm like, it's a low-level fight. You got one guy who's a former pro boxer, apparently, that I've heard. I haven't seen much tape on this. I keep going back and forth, but there's no reason. I'm not even going to overthink it. I'll go Ty Miller. Very unconfident pick. Rooting for Jimmy, though. Cool story. Anyway. Next up, we got the last fight. Ilian Bouafia versus Neemias Santana. Now, I got a good analogy for this fight here in about 30 seconds, but Ilian Bouafia is a French striker, and we got Neemias Santana, who's a Brazilian crash out. And this is going to be a really interesting fight because it's going to be more of a technical versus brawl style. Like Ilian Bouafia has a lot of hype around him. He's super tall, 6'5". Lord knows what his reach is. And Neemias, he's like decent on the regional scene. He's definitely going out there to just wail and hurt dudes. Personally, I know everyone is on Ilian Bouafia this card. I was looking at the total predictions on Tapology, and it's 87% of people are taking Bouafia this week. Only 13% are taking Santana. So you know what? We're taking Santana this week. We're going with the underdog. I know. The reason for that, this fight reminds me of a fight that we've seen before. We have the Frenchman, who is the more technical fighter, who should, in theory, on paper, win the fight, going against some South American, some country, I forget exactly where this other person's from. But yeah, I know Neemias is from Brazil, but some South American country going against the Frenchman. The Frenchman's the more technical fighter. The South American is the more crazy brawler, less technical, but probably more heart, more killer instinct. You know what this fight reminds me of? This is exactly what this fight reminds me of. Hydra Mill versus William Gomez. This is the same type of fight that this reminds me of. Now, not saying this with extreme confidence, because anything can happen. But in this fight, I took Hydra Mill. I picked him versus William Gomez because I know William Gomez, yeah, he's probably the more technical striker. He's going to have the reach advantage, height advantage. He's the more technical striker. On paper, he should win this fight. How did that fight go? He got outdogged. Hydra Mill was not the more technical fighter. He was not the better fighter. He just had more dog in him. He outdogged the Frenchman because something about these French fighters, we've seen these French fighters, I don't know what it is, if it's the level of competition, if it's the atmosphere, something about French fighters in the UFC, they just don't have that dog in them, at least for the majority of them. I mean, we've seen Omar Sy just got, fraud checked, but it was more so he just didn't have the dog in him. William Gomez didn't have the dog in him. What's his name? Kevin Bosset, that dude, he didn't have the dog in him. It's like all these French fighters are losing fights when they have a clear path to win, and they're losing it because they're not a dog. So it's like, I don't know if it's just the gyms, the environment, whatever the hell, but for that reason, I'm going with Neemias Santana. Neemias Santana, if you go and watch this man's tape, he's a crash out. This dude, he taunts, he will laugh, he will go to swing, and he wants to take your head off. He's not there to do some Leon Edwards point fight. No, he wants to kill you. When he gets in there, his last fight, he knocked this dude out. He was pointing at him. He was like laughing. He was taunting him mid-fight. This dude's a savage, man. I like his style. I want him to win, too. I just want to see him in the UFC. I think he would be super fun to watch in the UFC. Whereas Ilian Bouafia, we saw in his last fight. Who was his last fight? It was a snooze fest, man. It was Paulin Bagay, who's 6'3", a 6'3" Frenchman. Paulin Bagay. Now he's 7'4". It was an absolute snooze fest. No guy had either drive, motivation, willingness to go forward and make something happen. They were both just being wussies the whole time, not doing anything. Super boring, lackluster fight. And I'm like, all right, we know Neemias is not going to do that. He's going to go, he's going to stand and bang. He's going to make it ugly real quick. For someone like Bouafia, yeah, he's probably the more technical striker. He probably has the advantage everywhere. The only thing that he could be lacking, because I don't know for sure, there's not enough tape out there on him to see in terms of where his heart lies. I don't know him. I haven't seen him quit or fold or anything like that so far. Obviously, he's 6-0. But it's just I've been burned before, and I've gotten this right about French fighters not having the heart like other parts of the world. And we know Neemias is going to go out there, and he's going to look for it to take someone's head off. So I'm picking Neemias Santana. I think he can do it. I think he can outdog it. You know, his cardio has been a problem. So I think if this goes to the third round, he could be in trouble. Or late into the second, he might be in trouble. But, you know, there's a chance he gets him out of there in the first round. Or, you know, maybe Neemias gets a beatdown going in the first round. He should start dogging. You know, maybe he gets a little 10-8 first round. Anything could happen. You know, I'm kind of a little biased because I think Neemias would be super fun to watch in the UFC. So I am rooting for him, so I guess in a sense I am biased, but I'm still picking him. I think he could beat the French man here, but I think it's going to be a good fight. You know, you got to watch this one either way. It's going to be super fun to see, regardless of what happens. Well, yeah, for the last pick, we'll go with Neemias Santana as the big underdog, but, oh, there we go. So, all right, guys, this does it for Dana White's Contender Series Season 9, Week 1 predictions and picks. You know, I think this is going to be a fun little season. This is the first time we're doing this on the channel. So I'm really excited to see what the next 10 weeks look like with all the picks, predictions, and all that. So let me know if you guys like this stuff. Let me know, likes, comments, all that stuff helps me a ton. Lets me know what you guys like it. If you want to see more like this stuff, or just let me know your thoughts. You know, who you guys are thinking. Any insights too, because it's hard to know with these guys. Like I've seen some tape, obviously. I've gone through and watched their fights, what I could find online. But, you know, there's always little bits and pieces of information that I don't know that I would love to hear from you guys if there's anything that you guys know that I didn't say. You know, it helps me too. So anyway, guys, thank you so much for all the love on the recent videos. Thank you guys so much for all the support, everything. It's been totally awesome. I'm going to have more videos coming up this week too for UFC 319. I got a bunch of stuff coming up for that, so I'm super excited for it. But yeah, in the meantime, it's your boy Jacob from Topside MMA, and I'll see y'all soon. So, peace.